This month's supporter shoutout goes to Maddie Ranger, Corita Zodi Dolls, and Cupid Lucas. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and making these videos possible. If you would like to be shouted out in next month's video, I've put ways to support me on the screen right now.
Hey y'all, it's Ghost, and welcome back to another baking video. Now, if you guys remember, in the beginning of this year, I did a review on the Pickles The Frog New Year surprise box. And in that box was this Pickles the Frog Bon Appetit cookbook, as well as a kitchen timer. And if you guys remember, I said something along the lines of wanting to try out some of the recipes that are in this book. And today, as you could probably tell from the title, I am going to try the cookie recipe from the dessert section. Now, the actual book asks you to trace this out on a piece of tracing paper, copy it out onto a piece of cardstock, and use it as a template to cut out your cookies. However, I'm going to show you guys how to make your own cookie cutter with ingredients you probably have at home. So first, you're going to need a soda can or beer can that's made out of a flexible metal. If you can push on it and it'll sort of bend on its own by just applying some light pressure, that's good enough. I'm using this beer can. It's not mine, it's my dad's. You'll also need some gloves to protect your hands and a box cutter. So once you have your gloves on, you want to take the box cutter and then cut off the tops and the bottom of the beer can. Before moving on, I'm just going to add some soapy water into the can and sort of just rinse it out. Be very careful of the edge. Honestly, don't even touch it at all. You're going to cut yourself if you do. And then I'm going to use the knife to cut off the bottom part of the can. The can is very flimsy now, so be very careful. Next, I'm going to take a really old pair of scissors. I recommend just using an old one because this can wear down your scissors quite quickly. Just going to take it and just cut straight down. Once you've got this sheet of metal, you want to cut down the middle to make 2 strips. I'm just going to take a bit to smooth out the ends. You don't want to make your strips too thin, but you don't want them to be super uneven either. So just even them out and try to make them both the same width. Taking a stapler, I'm going to staple these 2 strips together. I'm going to spend a little bit more time straightening out these strips. You just want the ends to be as straight as possible and make them even. Now take your image, and I'm going to be using the one it provided in the book. I will not provide a scan in the description below because it is exclusive to this book. You can use whatever shape you want. Honestly, if you Google Pickles the Frog and look at the images, I'm pretty sure you can find a pretty clear view of his face, so you can just print that out and use it. So basically, I'm just going to put this around the head, and I think this is about how much you'll need. Just overestimate how much you think you'll need. The more there is, the better it is. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take some vinyl tape. It's appropriately green. You can use whatever tape you want as long as it's waterproof. So like duct tape or something like that. I'm just gonna take as much as I think I'll need. Probably around that much. And I'm just gonna cut a piece. Again, you want to overestimate this as well because you don't want any seams. And I'm going to release part of the metal strip here, and I'm going to tape along one edge. Another piece of tape, and this is where my seam is, where I stapled. I want a piece of tape on top of the staple to protect it, and a piece of tape along the seam to hold it together. Peel up the piece of metal. Again, mind the edge. Be very careful not to cut yourself. I'm going to hold it down with this jar, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the piece of tape over the edge. What I'm doing, but I'm putting down the salt jar on one end, the other one's the sugar jar, but basically I'm just using these jars to hold down the edge to stop the metal from curling. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did for the stapled seam. I'm going to take a small piece of tape, put it over the staple, and I'm going to take another length of tape and tape it over the seam. Now I'm just going to use this image as a guide and do my best to bend the sheet metal into the shape of Pickles' face. A pair of pliers may help you, but I don't really have one that's appropriate for this task. You got the basic shape you want to use the stapler again and staple the seam shut. Once you've got your basic shape, you want to take your scissors again and just trim around the edges so that it lies flat. If there's any curves, just flatten them. Take a little bit at a time and just take your time. Slowly trim away. A little bit of imbalance in the seam, or well, the bottom edge, isn't gonna ruin everything, but you do want it to be as even as possible. Take one last piece of tape and put it onto the seam so that it covers the upper staple and fold it over the edge to cover it. Then take another piece of tape that covers the seam and the other staple. The other edge is not lying flat, so I'm just going to trim it off. Do the same for the other side. And there you have it, a DIY cookie cutter in any shape you want. Please note, this is incredibly flimsy compared to a store-bought cookie cutter. As you can see, it kind of jiggles around as I hold it. I think the smaller the shape, the stronger it's going to be, but yeah, it's not very strong. So don't put it in the dishwasher, always hand wash it, and when you do hand wash it, be very careful of the edge. If you slide your finger over it, it will cut you, so be very, very careful. Alright, let's actually start on the cookies now. So in a bowl, you want to take 80 grams of room temperature butter. I already measured this out and it's already been softened to room temperature. You want to take 60 grams of brown sugar. You want to take your butter bowl and add your sugar to it and cream the mixture together. It's for half an egg, so I'm going to take 1 egg, crack it open into a glass. I'm just going to whisk it until smooth. Add half of the mixture, so about until here, slowly into the bowl. That looks good. I'm just going to stir everything. Next, I'm going to measure out 159 grams of flour. To this, I'm going to be adding 20 grams of almond flour. I'm going to add the flour mixture a little at a time to the butter, sugar, egg mixture. Once everything is incorporated, it should look like this. I had to go in with my hands after a little bit to knead everything, but this is the consistency that it's at. To this, I'm just going to add a dash of cinnamon and knead it in. Add as little or as much cinnamon as you want. I love the taste of cinnamon, so I added a lot. Take a piece of plastic wrap and put the cookie dough inside of it. Fold it all in. And then I'm going to let this rest in the fridge. The recipe says more than half an hour. Once the dough is about ready, you want to take some flour and sprinkle it over your work surface to prevent the dough from sticking. Gonna unwrap the dough and place it onto the work surface. I'm gonna take some flour and put it on my rolling pin, and I'm gonna roll out the dough. So lightly floured my homemade cookie cutter, and now I'm just gonna cut out some frog faces. This cookie dough is incredibly crumbly, so please be careful when you're working with it. I used one of these thingies to scrape it off my work surface and move it onto my baking tray. Now I'm going to take an end of this chopstick to give the frog eyes. And I'm going to use the same chopstick, just the right end, to poke a smile onto the faces. When you do this, be careful not to poke all the way through your cookies. You don't want that. So it doesn't say to preheat the oven, but it says to bake at 170 degrees for 30 minutes. Now, I think I've previously explained, but this oven is a bit overpowered, so I'm going to do 160 for 25, and I'm going to keep a careful eye on the cookies so that they don't burn. Here they are out of the oven. I've laid them out onto a cooling rack, and I tasted some of the corners that I had left. To be honest, they're still a bit burnt. It's not to the point that it's irredeemable, but they taste very slightly burnt. So maybe I should have done 20 minutes or less, but they're edible. They still taste quite good. So I'm just gonna call this one a success. I'm gonna leave these to cool to room temperature. So it's the next morning because things got a little bit late last night, but these are the finished cookies. So something that I noticed is that even though I didn't include anything in the batter that would cause them to rise, some of the cookies did kind of puff up for some reason. And also I should have been a little bit stronger on the indents because some of the eyes are kind of not there anymore. I wish I had a smooth rolling pin because the textured one, while it did prevent the dough from sticking, it obviously left a texture behind on the faces. But I did taste one last night and it tasted quite nice. Actually, I don't think they're as burnt as I thought they were. It might be from the very dark brown sugar that I used. That's causing the cookies to look burnt, and also it does have a very rich roasted flavor, so that might be what's making it seem worse than it actually is. If you don't want that, I recommend using light brown sugar only. But yeah, they did turn out pretty cute, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching the process. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!